The grand chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with a low, resonant hum. Its vast, domed ceiling shimmered with constellations that shifted slowly like a living star map. Dozens of alien species occupied floating platforms arranged in concentric rings, each platform customized for the physiology of its occupants. Luminescent tendrils, chitinous exoskeletons, and flickering plasma-like forms filled the chamber, every ambassador an avatar of their homeworld's pride. The air hummed with the murmur of alien tongues blending into a droning, diplomatic symphony. On the central platform stood the Speaker of the Council, a tall, silver-plated being with elongated limbs and a face resembling a smooth, featureless mask. His voice resonated like a melodic bell, his words sharp with authority. Attention, members of the Galactic Council. Today we welcome a new species to our fold. Primitive, bold, unfamiliar with decorum. They call themselves humans. There was a ripple of unease through the crowd. A few species hissed, blinked, or vibrated their appendages in what was clearly disapproval. Others observed with mild interest, waiting to see if these humans would follow protocol or embarrass themselves. Suddenly, the chamber lights dimmed. A tremor, subtle at first, grew into a rhythmic thrum that echoed through the floor. The source became clear. In orbit above the Council's homeworld, something massive had just arrived. Not one vessel, not a delegation shuttle, an entire fleet. The visual feed displayed it on the chamber's main screen, a formation of ships unlike any the Council had seen before. Gone were the sleek curves of advanced civilizations or the biological symmetry of organic craft. These were slabs of metal and firepower. Harsh, angular, unpainted, monolithic. Each ship looked like it had been built for a single purpose. Survival. No ornamentation, no beauty. Only function. The murmurs grew louder. They brought warships, one alien ambassador chirped, its shell vibrating in disbelief. They misunderstand our customs, another growled, eyes narrowing. Or perhaps they intend to challenge them. A smaller ship, a single transport, broke away from the fleet and descended rapidly toward the Council's primary docking bay. The platform shook again as it landed, hard and without ceremony. No broadcasted greetings, no requests for permission. The audacity was palpable. Moments later, the transport's ramp lowered. 3 figures walked out. Humanoid. 2 men, 1 woman. No ceremonial robes. No diplomatic emblems. Just plain uniforms of dark blue, marked only with small insignias. They strode forward as if they owned the place. Their steps echoed across the platform. Captain Reyes led the way. A man in his late 40s, his face weathered but sharp, eyes like twin suns that had seen too much and feared too little. Beside him was Lieutenant Sarah Valdez, younger but no less composed, her posture carrying the same energy as a predator in no mood to chase. Last was Engineer Marco Wu, chewing something casually, eyes darting around the chamber like he was sizing up every alien in sight. The Council speaker extended a hand-like limb, his voice coated in a diplomat's patience. Welcome, humans. Your presence is acknowledged, though your entrance is unconventional. I trust you are prepared to address the Council with the respect it is due. Captain Reyes didn't break stride. He walked right up to the speaker's platform, stopped at its base, and tilted his head. Respect is earned, not owed, he said with a calm, steady voice. The silence that followed was almost physical. It pressed down on the room like a gravity surge. No one had spoken to the Speaker of the Council like that. Ever. The speaker's mask-like face tilted slightly, his silver body shifting with a slow, deliberate grace. It seems you misunderstand the purpose of this assembly, Captain Reyes. The Galactic Council extends its hand in unity, and you would do well to accept it. Many species before you have learned that cooperation ensures survival. Defiance does not. Reyes raised an eyebrow, his mouth twitching into a small, almost amused smile. He glanced at Valdez, who tilted her head like she was trying not to laugh. Wu snorted, covering his mouth with his hand. Cooperation, huh? Reyes muttered, looking around the room. I see a lot of species sitting on high perches, looking down on anyone new. That's not cooperation. That's control. He turned back to the speaker. We're not here to join your little club. We're here to see what you're about. You presume too much, the speaker replied, his voice growing colder. The council has survived for millennia. Empires have crumbled, but we remain. We offer stability, order, peace. Peace through submission, Valdez said bluntly, folding her arms. That's not peace. That's a leash. Wu raised a finger, looking genuinely curious. Hey, just so we're clear, when you say many species before us, how many of them said no and walked away just like we're about to? The speaker's silence was answer enough. Yeah, thought so, Wu said, chuckling. The speaker's patience wore thin. We extend this offer of peace as a gesture of mercy. Your ships are impressive but irrelevant. No fleet, no matter how large, can stand against the combined might of the Galactic Council. The path of resistance leads only to ruin. Reyes's eyes flickered to the overhead screen showing the human fleet still stationed in orbit. His grin widened. That a threat, speaker? A warning, the speaker hissed. For your own preservation. Reyes rubbed his chin thoughtfully, as if considering it. Then he let out a low chuckle that grew into a sharp, genuine laugh. It wasn't loud, but it echoed in the quiet chamber like a thunderclap. Valdez couldn't hold it in any longer, covering her mouth as she tried, and failed to suppress her laughter. We didn't even try. He laughed openly, his shoulders shaking. The council chamber froze in shock. Laughter. Here. No species laughed in the council hall, especially not when being threatened. To the assembled diplomats, laughter was the sound of madness. Reyes took a breath, still smirking. All right, I'll play along, he said, glancing up at the speaker. Here's our counteroffer. Stay out of our way, and we'll stay out of yours. The speaker's tone became venomous. That is not how this works. Funny thing about humans, Reyes replied, his voice sharp as a blade. We don't care how it works. We make it work for us. The speaker stepped forward, towering over Reyes. If you continue down this path, Captain Reyes, you will learn humility. The council does not bend to brutes and warlords. Reyes leaned in closer, locking eyes with the speaker's featureless mask. His voice dropped to a quiet growl. You mistake us for conquerors. We're not here to conquer. We're here to survive. And survival means you don't get to decide what happens to us. Silence fell again. No laughter this time. Only the cold, steady gaze of three humans who had walked into the heart of the galaxy's oldest power and refused to bow. Well, Reyes said, taking a step back. This has been fun. I think we're done here. He turned on his heel, his officers following without hesitation. As they strode away, Valdez glanced over her shoulder at the stunned council members. Hey, if any of you change your minds, you know where to find us. Just make sure you're ready to talk like equals. Wu grinned, giving a mock two-fingered salute. Don't worry, we'll try not to laugh next time. The stillness was suffocating. The kind of quiet that wasn't absence of sound but the weight of something unspoken, something dangerous. No one moved. No one spoke. Every eye, sensor, and photoreceptor in the chamber was locked on the humans. Three figures, small by galactic standards, yet somehow larger than life. The speaker's silver frame remained perfectly still, as if he believed motion might shatter the delicate balance. His voice, sharp and cold, cut through the air. You presume too much, Captain Reyes. You believe this show of force grants you leverage, but leverage is meaningless against inevitability. One species does not defy the course of history. Reyes didn't bother turning around. He stopped mid-stride, hands in his pockets, his back to the council. His head tilted slightly, like he was weighing his next words. Slowly, he glanced over his shoulder, eyes locked on the speaker with a calm, predatory focus. Course of history, Reyes repeated, his tone somewhere between disbelief and amusement. Let me tell you something about history, Speaker. It's not a straight line. It's a series of bad decisions, desperate moves, and people too stubborn to quit. He turned fully now, facing the council with his hands still in his pockets. You think you're standing at the end of that line, looking down on us from the finish. But you're wrong. He took a step forward, his boots echoing louder than they should have. You're just another bump in it. One more obstacle. And humans. His eyes narrowed, the smile fading from his face. We don't stop for obstacles. There was no laughter this time. No grin. Just quiet certainty. Ambassador Elor of the Vosic Collective, a towering being of twisted vines and glowing spores, pulsed with golden light. Its voice resonated like the rustle of leaves during a storm. Such confidence. Such ignorance. Your species is young, Captain Reyes. You have not seen the weight of true conflict. The empires that rose, only to crumble into ash. We have seen them. We are them. The glow dimmed as its voice grew colder. You will be too. Difference is, Valdez said, arms still crossed. We learn from the ashes. We don't get comfortable sitting on top of them. She tilted her head at Elor. Looks to me like some of you got real cozy up there. The glow from Elor's spores flashed red. A sign of agitation. No one spoke for several seconds. Then, from a platform higher up, an alien resembling a floating mass of translucent tendrils emitted a soft, resonating tone. A moment later, the translation echoed across the chamber. Humans are a virus, the voice droned. They consume. They infest. They call it growth, but it is only consumption. You believe you are exceptional, but you are a pattern we have seen before. Parasites thinking themselves predators. Silence again. Reyes tilted his head slowly toward Wu. Did that jellyfish just call us parasites? Wu asked, scratching his chin like he'd misheard. Yup, Valdez replied, not looking away from the council. Bold move, Wu muttered. Reyes raised a hand to silence them, eyes fixed on the floating mass of tendrils. You think we're a virus? He asked, his voice like stone grinding against metal. Then maybe you should be more worried. Because you know what happens when you back a virus into a corner. He leaned forward, gaze hard as iron. It mutates. The tendrils shuddered, their glow dimming slightly. For all its talk, the ambassador did not respond. The speaker stepped forward, his voice sharp as ever. Enough of this. Theatrics will not change reality, Captain Reyes. The Council's authority is absolute. You speak as if your fleet grants you power, but it is an illusion. You are surrounded, outnumbered, overwhelmed. His eyes turned toward the central display, where the tactical feed still showed human ships locked in targeting positions. Your fleet is impressive, but it is finite. We have seen greater armadas crumble before us. Why do you believe yours will fare any better? Reyes stepped forward, this time until he was at the base of the speaker's platform. He craned his neck, looking up at the featureless silver face. Difference is, Speaker, those armadas you crushed. His voice was slow, deliberate, like he was explaining something obvious to a child. They thought they were playing your game. He jabbed a finger at the speaker. We're not playing. Wu tapped his device again. The targeting icons on the central screen shifted, flickering in sync. This time they moved. Council warships on the display were being retargeted, reticles sliding from hulls to bridge sections, power cores, and critical points. No one in the chamber missed it. The speaker's head turned sharply toward the screen. His voice lost its calm edge. You dare. We dare, Valdez answered, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. You think we're just another name to add to your list of fallen species. But you missed something important, Speaker. She tilted her head, her eyes hard as steel. We're not afraid of falling. We're afraid of staying down. Another pause. Another shift in the air. The ambassadors exchanged glances, their displays flashing as council fleet commanders requested orders. For the first time, uncertainty had entered the equation. The speaker's mask tilted down, almost imperceptibly. "This is your final warning, Captain Reyes. Stand down. Withdraw your fleet. This is your last chance to accept the precepts and join the greater order of the galaxy." His words came slowly, each one an unspoken threat. "Reject it, and your species will burn as so many before you have." Reyes didn't flinch. Didn't blink. He just stared up at the speaker for several long silent seconds. Then he leaned forward, hands still in his pockets, voice quiet but unshakable. "You should have led with that," he said. The speaker's head tilted slightly, confused. "That whole speech," Reyes continued, eyes locked on the silver mask, "should have started with the threat. Would have saved us all some time." He glanced over his shoulder at Valdez and Wu. "You hear that, crew? Last chance." "Last chances are funny things," Valdez replied. "Feels like we've had about 3 of them already." "Yeah," Wu added, flipping his device shut with a snap. "I'm thinking this one's for them." Reyes turned back to the speaker, eyes cold as a winter storm. "Here's my counteroffer, speaker." His voice lowered to a growl, deliberate and deadly. "We walk out of here. You stay out of our skies. No leashes. No precepts. No threats." His eyes narrowed. "Take it or find out what happens when a virus learns how to hunt." The chamber was silent. No mutters. No chittering. No flashes of colored spores. For the first time, the Galactic Council didn't know what to do. They'd seen rebellion before. Seen anger. Defiance. But this wasn't defiance. This was something colder. Something older. The speaker remained still, his frame perfectly rigid. No reply. No response. The other ambassadors didn't speak. None of them wanted to be the first to break the silence. "Yeah," Reyes muttered, stepping back slowly. "That's what I thought." He turned, walking away with Valdez and Wu at his sides. The weight of every eye in the chamber followed them. As they reached the exit, Valdez glanced over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the room one last time. She didn't smile. Didn't gloat. She just shook her head. "Funny thing about last chances," she muttered, her voice just loud enough to be heard. "They tend to go both ways." The doors slid shut behind them,